InGame Live, Friday night. What is up, everybody? How are you? Welcome in. Dave Sherapan off, Matt Perrault with you. Scott Wetzel in for Dave as we take it through the next couple of hours. Heavyweight battle in the NBA, Celtics and the Nuggets. We're going to take a look at that here in just 1 second. We've got games going on, obviously. Big ones this weekend. 2 tomorrow, 2 on Sunday. Scott, good to see you again. How are you on this Friday? We got some UFC stuff coming up this hour. Cam Stewart will join us in the second hour.
Yep. What's going on, Matt? We got a little hockey tonight as well. Maybe we'll get into some of the hockey futures. Do love the New York Islanders. First time I've uttered those words this year against the fading fast Chicago Blackhawks, who just can't score. A couple of NBA games, light night in college basketball, but a couple of games we could have some fun with tonight. So, and obviously, as you mentioned, the football, and we'll figure out how the Ravens and San Francisco 49ers are not getting to the Super Bowl, because I think that's as good a lock as you can get all postseason.
Well, my book would be open to take your wagers, sir, if you don't think the one seeds are going to make it. So I would be gladly to take it, because I think I've been saying it for a while. That's what I think we're going to wind up being, although I'm not as confident with San Francisco. I'm pretty confident with the Ravens to get past Texans tomorrow, and then getting past either the Bills or the Chiefs coming up here in the championship round. But Celtics and the Nuggets going after it right now. 25-23, the Nuggets with a slight advantage over Boston. I've gone a little crazy in this game. I'm on Boston minus 5.5. I'm on over 26.5 points for Jason Tatum. I'm on over 2.5 threes for Michael Porter Jr., and I'm on the Celtics first half team total over 61.5 here on this one. So I am closely watching this game here. Anything that you got your eye on here in the early slate?
Yeah, I'm all over Denver, to tell you the truth, Matt. So we're on opposite sides of things, although not quite to the extent that you're on Boston. I just took Denver plus the 7.5. I put it in earlier this afternoon. I know it dropped to 7, but I know. Listen, defending champs, and at times this season they're going to look ugly. Other times they're going to look excited. If they can't get excited for the Boston Celtics, the odds-on favorite to come out of the East, even though I don't think it's going to happen, then they never will. So I'm thinking you're going to get your A game. And I find it curious with these lines. Listen, it's the regular season, but you're telling me, Matt, that the Celtics, if they met the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals, the Celtics during their home games would be a 7-point favorite? I mean, that's a big 7.5. It started out. That's a huge number. So
it is.
I don't know if Denver wins, but I'll take 7.5 with the world champs against anybody anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Denver is 7-14 ATS on the road this year, so they have really been bad away from home.
But you got to look at that thing. Like, here's the thing, Matt. I'm sorry to cut you off, but you have to look for certain spots. Like, there was a stat that Taylor came up with last week. Good stat, great stat. I forget exactly what it was. Something pertaining to the Lakers, I think it was. And I said, yeah, but the team that they were playing, and honestly, I forget who it was, they're not going to get up for every single game. When you go into L.A. and play LeBron for the Lakers, you're going to get up for that game. So throw out the previous stuff. And same thing here with Denver. You're right, especially on the road where all these teams are all going to get up with them. They're not going to get up for certain games. But the Denver Nuggets will get up for a game in Boston. So I'm willing to throw out all those bad trends.
I hear you. I mean, it's what I laid 5.5. So, I mean, we can technically both win this. It falls 6 and we both wind up winning. So right. I don't think you took the best number on Denver. I took the best number on Boston. So like, we're kind of sitting with the right numbers for either side that we like, and we'll see where the number winds up falling. But I think the thing for Denver is that they, with teams like Boston, when they're healthy, I mean, this is a West Coast or East Coast trip for Denver. Yes, I'm with you. They may get up for it, but this is not a playoff game. This is not a championship game. They don't need to go all the way and put everything on this game. And if it gets away from them, you can see Denver pull out some of their stars like Jokic and just say, you know what, we're good with this. And, Boston has scored a ton of points at home this season. They're one of the top scoring teams at home, one of the top first half scoring teams at home. And this number 61.5 is pretty much right on what Boston averages to score every night. And you have Tatum and you have Derek White, who are both in the game. Brown is here. Porzingis is here. So you're getting the fully loaded Celtics team, and they want it as badly as the Nuggets do. This is the defending champs coming into town, and you have a chance to protect your home court. Boston is 20-0 this year, straight up at home at the Garden. And they are a team that, fine, they're 13-7 ATS. But again, they're going to give you the best effort as well. So you have a team that's bad on the road, and I get it. They're going to get up for the Boston Celtics, but Boston doesn't have a ring on their finger. Denver does, and you're going to get the Boston Celtics' best shot. And I think Boston at home with their best shot is better than Denver on the road with their best shot at this point in the season. So a couple of trends going after each other, and we'll see what ends up happening. I'm with you on Denver getting up, but I can't wait. If this is the NBA Finals, this would be really fun because you're going to have Al Horford on Joker, and that's going to be a really tough matchup. We know what Al does against guys like Joel Embiid, but I don't know how it will fare against a guy as talented as, the multifaceted nature of what Jokic does on the court, his passing ability, his setting up his other players, shooting threes in the post, rebounding. Embiid does that, but not at the same level that the Joker does at times, offensively. So this will be a ton of fun. The wing play here is going to be awesome in this game. And right now, Boston is up 28-25, and another 3-point shot goes down there for Al Horford. So good on pace right now for me for my first half team total over. And the pace of this game is, if you bet the over, you're going to feel pretty good about it because we're on a pretty fast pace here.
All right. Listen, this will be fun tonight. We'll see how this thing plays out. I just think, and I'm a Celtic fan. I think you are, being from Boston.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I've just seen this team fail so many times before. But I know the boys in Vegas, they're like the Dallas Cowgirls when it comes to the boys in Vegas. Vegas just absolutely, they're like the Buffalo Bills. They love the Celtics, which shows why the Celtics, according to, as you just saw the odds there, plus 290 to win the NBA championship when the defending champs are plus 420. I mean, it's a solid plus 130 more. And meanwhile, Boston hasn't won squat. They've never won a big game since Larry Bird, for goodness sakes. So I just think, like I said, I marvel at the point spread.
This team did play in the NBA Finals. I mean,
did they win?
No, but
they win.
I mean, they won the Eastern Conference. I mean, to say they haven't won it, they won.
So what?
I
Did
mean,
they have to go through Milwaukee? No.
2008. They beat Milwaukee last year. I mean, 2008.
2 years
I mean, they won the championship. I mean, they've beaten everyone. They've beaten the Sixers. They've beaten Milwaukee.
Well, 2000.
They've been the best.
Not this team.
Okay, no, but they've been the best in the last this last 3 years. The Boston Celtics have been the best team in the Eastern Conference. They just haven't gotten it done when they're supposed to get it done. And look, they went down 3-0 to Miami last year. That was embarrassing, but they came back and they forced the Game 7, and they sort of ran out of gas against them with a first-year head coach in Joe Mazzulla. I'm pretty high. I haven't bet it just because I don't like the numbers, but I'm pretty high on Boston's chances of getting to the NBA Finals this year, just because Philly appears to be their number one opponent. And Boston beats Philly every year in the postseason. So maybe this year's different because they have a new head coach and Nick Nurse is going to change things for Philadelphia. But the addition of Drew Holiday
Who has the harder
natural.
road? Who has the harder road, Matt, to the NBA Finals? Boston or Denver?
Denver.
I think Boston.
Because the Clippers are the best team. Because the Clippers are the best team in the West. So you got to go through the Clippers.
All right, you got one Clipper team. We got Milwaukee that can be good. We got Philadelphia that can be good.
Boston beat them both last year. I mean, and Milwaukee's worse.
So but there's still Milwaukee. There's still the Greek freak that they can't guard.
That's
I
right.
think that's a tougher road.
That's right. He beat Milwaukee. For 2 years ago, Boston beat Milwaukee in the playoffs. But I still think Boston's got an easier path in the West. More to come. In-game live on a Friday night.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted them out. They still wanted them gone.
Mike Shula, you replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
InGame Live on a Friday night. Scott Wetzel and Matt Perrault with you. We are going to talk some football during this segment, but on Coast to Coast, Adam Kaplan had this to say about Antonio Pierce finally getting tabbed to be the coach of the Raiders.
What's your reaction to the Raiders just now giving Antonio Pierce the job?
Yeah, and look, that's the way this thing was headed. That's why they didn't go to Harbaugh. And look, the players loved him. The issue is now does Champ Kelly, the interim GM, become the general manager. I worked with Antonio at ESPN, hard-nosed guy. Players respond to him. But the key is here, because they don't have a quarterback, they've got to get a qualified offense coordinator. I'm very interested to see who his staff is going to be, because, it's one thing, and Patrick Graham, by the way, the defense coordinator, was absolutely phenomenal. Certainly one of the best jobs of coaching when you look at the talent that he had to work with. But it's all about getting the offense straightened out here. And they don't have a quarterback. They got to fortify the offensive line. They've got a lot of work to do with their front office, but Pierce is a guy who did a great job. Now he's got to prove he can do it over a series of years here. But again, it's going to be getting the GM and getting a quarterback. That's the thing about that job. And by the way, talking to some coaching agents, that was not probably the best job that was out there. If you looked at the 8 openings, but it was one that was open and one that's got defensive talent, but they don't have a quarterback, and that's why some people complain about it.
So that's pretty much, Scott, the opinion of most people here in Vegas with Antonio Pierce getting the job. It's a little bit of a backwards road that the Raiders are taking, because Antonio Pierce, the questions were being asked over and over again. You saw Max Crosby, the star defensive end for the Raiders, come out and say that if Pierce does not get the job, he'll ask to be traded from the Raiders. You saw a lot of fans locally saying, what's taking so long? You have this guy. The team responded. You made the mistake with Rich Bisaccia a couple of years ago when he got the team to the postseason, and you fired him to move on to Josh McDaniels, and it was a complete disaster. But you don't have a quarterback here in town. AOC is not the guy. You have a team without a GM, and you're heading towards a draft where you're going to have to address the quarterback position. You're going to have to address the offensive line position. And frankly, he has to build a staff to find, and I didn't cover the team every day, but those people here in Vegas who do cover the team every day have said that just the every day-to-day play calling, decision-making, in-game management is a really big concern with Antonio Pierce. He's a rah-rah guy, and the players love him. But what's your take on Antonio Pierce getting the job here in Vegas?
Well, without knowing the insights to it all either, Matt, I'm not keen on things that don't make sense to me. And listen, he has no coordinator experience. I know he's a player. I get that. A coordinator in college. But, he was a linebackers coach here in the NFL. And if you're telling me that he's a great football mind. Okay, I've long said I don't care if this guy can't spell X and O as long as he can run a game and decide when to call challenges, decide when to call timeouts, decide when to run, when to throw, then I'm okay with that. John Harbaugh, great success with the Baltimore Ravens, right? Never a coordinator outside of special teams coordinator. But if you're telling me now that his, X's and O's things on game management minutia is not great, well, then what does he bring to the table? And you know what? All those Max Crosbys of the world, I don't care. You don't like the coach I'm bringing in? Don't let the door hit you in the ass. We haven't been a good franchise for how many years since Kenny Stabler's been quarterback, right? I don't care if you don't like him. In fact, I don't want my players to like him. How did the players really like Bill Belichick, right? Everything is great. And as a Dolphin fan, Matt, we've had this discussion with me and a bunch of the guys here. Everything is great with Mike McDaniel when they're scoring 50, 60 points and everyone's getting their share of runs and catches. What happens, though, when things don't go well? All those players that love the head coach all of a sudden don't respond because they really don't respect him, because they like him as a friend, maybe a little bit as a mentor, but not the disciplinarian that you need to be as a head coach to keep things on the straight and narrow. So that's my concern. I'd rather have had them lose a bunch of games, but then kind of respond throughout the entire season. I don't know. I don't use, let's put it this way. I don't use an endorsement from a player or even an entire team as a reason to hire a head guy. If I don't like that guy, I don't care if those players like him or not. You know what? He's their head coach. You don't want to be here? Don't let the door hit you in the ass.
Yeah, it's wild because the value for the Raiders since they have moved here to Las Vegas is tremendous. I mean, I believe they're the sixth most valuable NFL franchise now since moving here. And you wouldn't really think that the Raiders have been the laughing stock when they were in Oakland or they were in Los Angeles. It was just like, come on, they played in a horrible facility and they had no one really wanting to do any business with them whatsoever. Mark Davis is a very unique owner because the most valuable thing he owns is the Raiders, unlike other coaches, Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and whatnot, who made their money in other places and became NFL owners. He inherited it from his dad, and he's been, criticized for that, about the team having financial problems. Well, he's been paying multiple head coaches now. I mean, the John Gruden thing is still going on right now. The Bisaccia thing was still going on. He's got contracts to pay for former coaches. And now Josh McDaniels, he still owes him. So there was a thought of like, if you don't take this guy, who's going to come here? Who wants to be here? And frankly, the list was pretty short. It's an NFL franchise, and I get there's a very finite number of jobs, but you have a guy who wants to be a Raider head coach. And that was the number one problem between Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. And why Antonio Pierce got the job was because Josh McDaniels was upset when Antonio Pierce was ripping the Patriots in a team meeting, and he was pulled aside and said, don't talk about the Patriots like that. And Antonio Pierce was like, what are you talking about? You're the head coach of the Raiders. And that really made people in that locker room love Antonio Pierce. Then he gets the job. The team plays hard for him. They win a couple of games they probably weren't supposed to. They win a couple of road games they probably weren't supposed to. And now everyone's like, okay, here we go. I just have a really big fear like you've talked about. Rich Bisaccia was, according to Mark Davis, the biggest mistake he's made as the owner of the franchise was not giving him the head coaching position. He's in the same boat, and I feel like he's giving Antonio Pierce the job to make up for the previous mistake that he made with Rich Bisaccia, who's now with the Green Bay Packers on their sideline, typing up that team now playing this coming weekend. I want to like the hire. I want to get behind Antonio Pierce. I want to think this is the right guy, but my goodness, you're right. His experience, it's thin. He has to go find an offensive coordinator. Does he have one that can come in here and be actually a good play caller? And then what are you doing in the draft? There's no GM. They don't have a GM right now.
Right.
So you have to address the quarterback position here. You're in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Like, you've got to find a quarterback that can help you, not next year. You're not going to be competitive next year, but in 2 and 3 years from now, what does the team look like? And are they right back here 3 years from now, firing their head coach and going, oh man, here comes the next guy to come on in here and wow us and make us think that we're going to be competitive. So the Raiders have been 6.5 or 7.5 wins for the last 4 seasons. I don't know. I think it's maybe same old next year. Do you think this is going to make this team that much better?
Yeah. And the other thing, Matt, is last time I checked, Rich Bisaccia is not dead. So If you're willing to make the mistake that, you know what, we should have hired the guy, well, then go hire him now. There's no reason why you couldn't call him up and say, let me hire the guy, right? You could do that. And you said it. The fact that you've hired the head coach, that is like the number one administrative boo-boo, right? Hire the head coach no matter what the sport before the GM. You just really don't want to do that if you don't have to. But, it's
because that means the
Raiders.
coach has a say in who the GM is going to be versus the other way around. Because normally the GM is the guy who says who the coach is. So in order to have a GM come in, he has to be approved essentially by Antonio Pierce. Now, the guy in place right now might get the job.
Right? You keep on lowering the bar. Right now, Antonio Pierce is the top. You want Antonio Pierce to hire better offensive coordinators, better defensive coordinators, and get a better GM. But that's not the case when you hire the head coach first. You get lower because, as you say, he's going to have say on who it's going to be.
And it feels like they're going to go get a veteran quarterback. It feels like they'll have a stopgap. Maybe they'll draft a third or a fourth rounder to develop. But that's what they did with AOC this past year. They drafted him out of Purdue late, and they thought he might be decent. And then he looked okay in the preseason. And he came in and played a couple of games where he was okay. But you have Devontae Adams, the best wide receiver in the game. And that's why every Jet fan who hears this says, keep being bad. They'll trade us him. Well, if Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams reunited in green, put him in New York, keep on losing, Raiders, and make it so bad that he has to demand a trade to New York. We'll look at the NBA slate and some hockey games coming up next. In-game live Friday night. Matt and Scott, don't move here. More to come here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula,
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, PrimeTime, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
In-game live Friday night. Scott Wetzel sitting in for Dave Sherapan here on a Friday night. Matt Perrault with you. We'll be joined by Zaid Hussein. Talking about UFC 297 coming up here in the next segment. But before we do that, we haven't touched on football yet, Scott. So let's get to the games, obviously, coming up. We'll start with Saturday. We'll start with the first game tomorrow. It's the AFC South Special. They always seem to play the first game on Saturday in these playoff weekends. Ravens laying 9.5. Snow in Baltimore today. There shouldn't be any real problems with the weather coming up tomorrow for this game, but a lot of folks are all over the Texans. How do you feel about this one? Are you back in the public here and going with the dog?
No, I'm not. I'm rooting for the Texans without really having a dog in a fight. I am rooting for Houston. I think it's a great story. D'Amico Ryan should be coach of the year, hands down, despite some other great jobs around the NFL, right? I mean, how can't you root for C.J. Stroud and everything? But ultimately, I think Baltimore's winning the Super Bowl this year, Matt. I really do. Do I want to enjoy, laying 9.5? No, but you know what? I don't like betting on teams I think are actually going to lose the game. I'll take the chance that Baltimore finds a way to cover. It's hard. History says these teams that are Cinderella teams, they tend to pan out for a week, but then the next time, especially on the road, as nearly all of them are, it's not the same. It just isn't the same. Baltimore beat them earlier this year. A relatively close game, I will say that, but Houston couldn't score a touchdown, 3 field goals. So at least they know they have the experience. You got a well-rested team. You got a team that's coming off a high, blowing out the Cleveland Browns. I just think Baltimore finds a way to get it done, and the Cinderella slipper is over for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, that was week 1, 20-9, the win for the Ravens.
Yep.
And, they covered the 9.5. You could say the number was 9.5 then, but it was a cover. But I think it's interesting to see the number of people who are actually, I don't know if they're openly rooting for Lamar Jackson to fail, but we've seen this before, a 14-2 season, number 1 seed MVP campaign for Lamar, and then they lose in the opening round. And it's almost like people are expecting that to happen again, that like he's 1-3 in the playoffs and he just has a real problem winning big football games. And then I go, well, he's playing the AFC South, a rookie quarterback on the road whose numbers are drastically different when they're on the road and outdoors than they are when they're playing indoors and at home. And I love the CJ Stroud story. And I think if I'm a Texans fan, I'm ecstatic about the future of what this franchise could look like. I just don't think they're going to have the firepower to go up against this Ravens defense that's going to be well rested and really wanting to end the narrative that this team can't perform in the postseason and rid everyone of that thought of like, well, last time you guys were the 1 seed, you couldn't get it done. I don't know. I think it looks, to me, it's going to look like a rookie quarterback playing in the postseason tomorrow. And it's going to be a long afternoon for CJ Stroud. And I think they're going to blitz the heck out of him. And I think they're going to hit him a lot and get to him. The Browns defense, everyone's talking about the Browns defense and saying this is the first time a rookie quarterback beat a number 1 overall defense. But the Browns splits were so crazy. They gave up, I think it was 12 more points on the road per game than they did at home. Like they were 2 different defenses on the road than they were at home. And yes, overall, when you roll the ball up, they were the number 1 defense. But look how they played yesterday. I mean, the pick sixes, the game got away from them with that, but they moved the football at will on them. I don't think that's going to happen here against this Ravens secondary with as much time as they've had to rest and to get going. So anything prop bet wise you're looking at in that game? Because a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of people just liking the running props here for the Ravens, thinking they're going to get a lead and then run the football.
Yeah, a couple things really quickly. You're right about Cleveland. They gave up 30 points a game on the road. Only team in the NFL that had all road games go over. 8-0, 9-0 if you want to include the playoff game. So, and the other thing about Baltimore real quickly too, Matt, is I laugh at people that say the reason you gave as far as what you've heard as well. Well, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson can't win. All right, you know what? I buy that rhetoric to a certain extent. I do. But then tell me who is going to win. Unless you think Kansas City is repeating, and I don't, then somebody has to exercise the demons. Because you look at the teams that are alive, Houston has never won, whether it's the Texans or the Tennessee Titans or the Houston Oilers. None of them have ever won a Super Bowl. So it's not going to be them, clearly. Detroit Lions never even been to a Super Bowl, so it clearly can't be them. How about Green Bay? Well, Green Bay hasn't won since 2011. It's been a long time. Aaron Rodgers is not walking through that door, folks. Well, it's got to be San Fran, Scott. San Fran hasn't won since Steve Young was quarterback, believe it or not, 1995. So I guess you could give me Tampa Bay, but who really thinks Tampa Bay's winning the Super Bowl? So somebody, point being, has to break through this little problem that they've had, whether it's the Buffalo Bills, same thing. I forgot to mention them. They can't get to the Super Bowl, right? Or if they do, Jim Kelly, they can't win it. So who's the team? Why can't Baltimore be that team that kind of breaks that, cloud that's hanging over them? So
I would agree.
Right? Yeah.
No, I think you're right.
How about this prop, Matt, real quick? For Baltimore, if you think that they're going to get to the Super Bowl, and I do, right now Baltimore's plus 125 on FanDuel to get to the Super Bowl. That's not good enough for me. If you could make a bet on FanDuel that Baltimore gets to the Super Bowl and has at least one rushing touchdown in each game, plus 430. It was plus 470 earlier in the week. It's down to plus 430, but they've had a rushing touchdown in every game except two. So
interesting.
Chances are pretty good that they're going to get a rushing touchdown, right?
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I like that. I mean, I have the Ravens to win the AFC with an 11-1 ticket that I bought back in August. And
nice.
So
nice.
I'm sitting well with the Ravens. I couldn't fully justify at the time a Super Bowl ticket for them, but I thought they were good enough to win the AFC, and I thought they had a really good shot of being the number 1 seed, which has come to fruition for them. And obviously, if they lose this game tomorrow, that's a really embarrassing thing because I'm not going to hedge off of it. I'm going to let this ride on this game. In fact, I'm doubling down on it. I'm betting on the Ravens tomorrow, laying the 9.5. So I'll hedge off of it in the next game. I asked this question, though, of Dave Sherpin today, and I want to ask you, Scott, this question. If I gave you Brock Purdy and said, of the 7 other teams, you can put Brock Purdy on any one of the other 7 teams and replace their quarterback, can you justify the team getting better by putting Brock Purdy on any of those 7 other teams to replace the other 7 quarterbacks?
Wow. I'm guessing you expect me to say no, right, to Brock Purdy. You're down on Brock Purdy.
No, I mean, you could say yes. Dave had 2 answers as to who teams he thought that could improve by putting Brock Purdy on them. So it's not a definite no. But
all right. Let's run them down quickly. Houston, no. Yeah, you got to love what C.J. Stroud has done. C.J. Stroud hasn't thrown an interception since week 11, which is amazing.
Unbelievable. It's incredible.
Right? I mean, it's just amazing. Green Bay, I think he would be equal with Jordan Love.
Ooh,
Tampa Bay.
I don't think so.
Baker?
No, not with Baker's ability to throw the deep ball. Not with those wide receivers. I like Baker on Tampa a lot.
I would take Detroit. I would take Brock Purdy just because I think he's more consistent than up and down Jared Goff.
That was our answer. The only one you could make a solid case for would be Detroit. But that's sort of where we are. That's where we are here with Brock Purdy and where we're going with this team and why I like the Packers to cover on Sunday or on Saturday, though, because I think if you look at the Niners, they're great everywhere except the quarterback position. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Brock. He's a good starting quarterback. I just don't think he's elite. And when you get to this level and you start playing for championships, I'm not saying he's going to fall on his face, but he did it against the Ravens where he threw 4 picks. So your quarterback has the potential to blow the whole season if he's not playing at his best, if he fumbles the ball or throws interceptions and just makes bad reads. I don't care how many great skill players you have in Kittle and Ayuk and, Christian McCaffrey and everyone else you got on that offense. If he doesn't perform well against the Packers, they could be one and done. Like in terms of like what I think an upset could be, the Niners, and maybe to your point that both the 1 seeds are not getting there. If I had to pick which 1 seed's not getting there, you would agree then, right? Because you like the Ravens to win it all. So who's beating the Niners?
I don't think anybody, to tell you the truth. I really don't, at least not into the Super Bowl. So, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably, as crazy as it sounds, make no sense, but I'd probably actually choose Baltimore. I could see just, maybe Lamar does implode again, which I really don't think is going to happen because they've been here all week. If they don't play well Saturday, I would really be surprised because they've been told for a week they can't perform in the postseason. So, but they're so good, San Fran. They got 9 wins by 16 points or more. You're right. If he implodes, they're going to lose. But who's to say he's going to implode against a Green Bay defense and a Green Bay team? I don't think is really that good. I think it's what have you done for me lately? And I get that, Love's been playing well and Green Bay looked great last week, but they did give up 30 points. So, If the Dallas Cowboys can put 30 on the board, I think San Fran could do the same. I don't think he's going to screw up next week.
Yeah, no, I like the over a lot in the game, too. I think we're going to see scoring on both sides. I just think Jordan Love's playing. We mentioned C.J. Stroud at the level he's playing, but Jordan Love's been playing just as good, if not better, in having his full receiving core back. Having Musgrove back and having Watson healthy is just tremendous for that offense. And then Aaron Jones is running the football as well as anybody in football in the NFL right now, and that's the key. They got to run the ball. They got to run the ball consistently, and they got to be able to do to Dallas to San Fran what they did to Dallas, which was run the ball first, set up the pass, go play action, and then hit the big play down the field. Now, Dallas is a different animal than the Niners. The pass rush for the Niners is a different animal than Dallas, and I get that. But the mobility of Jordan Love, I think, is going to be so important because he's throwing so well on the run right now. It's Rodgers-esque. It's not as good, but it's in that same vein where he's throwing the football from awkward positions, 1 foot on the ground, jump passes. He's finding guys open by using his legs to burn time and get time. So I cannot wait to watch that because I like plus 9.5. If it goes to 10, I like it even more. I think the Niners win, but I think that's the game where we might go, oh my gosh, could this actually happen? Let's talk some UFC 297. Zaid Hussein is going to join us on the other side for his picks for the card in Toronto coming up on pay-per-view tomorrow night. SportsGrid, Friday night. Don't move.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
In-game live Friday night coming up tomorrow night in Toronto, UFC 297 pay-per-view. We got a big fight. We got Duplessis taking on Sean Strickland. Has got himself into a whole lot of hot water. Zaid Hussein, UFC gambler, UFC bettor, joining us here on SportsGrid. Zaid, Matt, and Scott, how are you on this Friday night? You had a heck of a weekend here in Vegas last weekend, did you not?
Yeah, very, very big weekend. Overall, just wild when you think about it. You know, the ups and downs. It's a classic Vegas trip. You know, you're chasing, you're winning, you're losing, and it had a lot of excitement in between.
All right, let's play the video here real quick, because I think anybody who would dream of this opportunity, because talk us through this. How much money is this, and how exactly did you win this?
So this is a total of $157,000 and some change. Overall, won just on the UFC card. We hit literally every single bet we placed that weekend. So it was a really good weekend. There's a couple parlays, one ticket with a big parlay, and then we were actually one fight away from a $6,000 parlay cashing into $87,000 as well, which kind of should have cashed. Had a real good shot at cashing. But overall, it was an amazing weekend, obviously.
Scott, what would you do with that much money?
When they give you that money, Zaid, what did you just say? See you later, you know, or you have 50,000 people. You got security people. Did you gamble it away? Do you actually have that money still, or did you put it back in the kitty?
No, that money's put to the side, and obviously we had a Red Rock Casino, a great casino, great host, and they took care of me over there.
Yeah, did they ever? Heck yeah. So you had a fun time. All right, let's look at this pay-per-view card coming up. Let's start with the main event, then we'll get to some of your favorite plays on the card. Sean Strickland's got himself into a lot of trouble here. He's talking crazy, and the public has responded. Duplessis was favored. He's no longer favored. It's actually big move on Strickland here. He's the middleweight champion, but I think most people believe that Strickland, he fought kind of a washed-up Israel Adesanya, and that fight happened in September. So it's a quick turnaround. The UFC clearly is a little uncomfortable with Sean Strickland, and they want to keep this the middleweight belt in play here by giving him a fighter in Duplessis who has not lost in the UFC. He's had 6 fights, none of them gone to the cards so far. Who do you like in the main event?
You know, for me, this is a fight that I've been kind of back and forth on. And when I look at the fight, I think this is a perfect fight for a live betting opportunity, which is something you really don't see that much in MMA. But I look at this fight in 2 different ways. When you look at the Duplessis side, he's a guy that has never fought a 5-round fight. We've seen him gas, in fights, but being able to finish it, obviously. I think if he wins this fight, it's going to come early, maybe in the 1st or 2nd round. But then you look at the Strickland side, who's shown he has the ability to drag fights out, bring guys into deep waters. We saw with Abus Magomedov, look great in the first 2 rounds against Strickland. Then when that gas thing started to tire, Sean Strickland's a guy that's nonstop into your face. So I think this is a fight where Duplessis early or Strickland takes over late in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round.
So what are you going to be looking for in the fight to give you an idea of which way you're going to go?
Yeah, so for me, it's about how well Strickland does defensively in the beginning. I mean, you've seen him pressure guys like Israel Adesanya, and this is a fight where Duplessis also is a guy that comes forward a lot. So if you're seeing who's winning the pressure battle here, it's going to give you a pretty good indication of who's going to win this fight. Whoever's taking that back foot is going to be in trouble in this fight. And I think Strickland's boxing is some of the most underrated in the UFC. So being able to defend the shots well and keep this fight standing and not taking damaging shots, I think Strickland can roll here late and possibly get a late finish. So it's
interesting. Yeah, but Zaid, here's the thing, though, with Strickland. I mean, a lot of his fights have gone the distance. And I thought it was wild to watch him at the press conference on Thursday when he essentially said to the death to Duplessis. And he was almost like asking him to stand with him. Doesn't it feel like this fight's going to the ground and this is going to be – and I know Strickland was like, I wrestle all the time, blah, 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 but nobody is paying for us to wrestle. They want to watch us fight. And I thought that was pretty interesting because in terms of defense, in terms of just, guys who have had submissions in the UFC, Duplessis has a much better ground game, does he not, over Strickland?
Yeah, I believe so, and that's something that's being overlooked in this fight is Duplessis does have the ability to take it to the ground. And everybody mentions about how Strickland's grappling, being able to take fighters down. I don't think it's a case of, he wanted to stand. I just don't think he's as confident as his grappling and as good as in his grappling as people think. Overall, Duplessis should shoot, but I don't think he will. This is a fight where it will stay standing. And we've seen money come in on Duplessis' submission. It's dropped a little bit in the prop. But I just think this fight stays standing. I think Duplessis believes in his power. He's undefeated. He's came forward in every single fight, and he has the power to put Strickland away. And I don't think he goes away from that. I think both these guys fight hard on the feet, and we see someone get finished here.
All right, next fight. I wish you liked Sam Patterson because I don't want to try and pronounce the second guy's name, but you don't like Sam Patterson in the next fight.
Yeah. For me, Johan Lainez is a really, really good spot.
I would not have guessed that.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. It's butchered. All these names are butchered in the UFC. You just gotta know these things. For me, there's a lot of factors into this fight that probably the general public doesn't know about, and that's the fact that Johan Lainez now is on final fight of his contract. He came in off the Contender Series, so this is a fight that's a must-win for him. He's switching gyms now. He's training at TriStar Gym. He's in Canada. It's going to be his hometown. He's coming in fighting a guy in Sam Patterson who's now moving up from 155 to 170, who got starched in one of his most recent bouts against a fighter where, he came in as a big favorite. Patterson is over a 2-1 favorite, getting knocked out. I think this is a spot in Lainez where he's going to have the power edge. He's going to be able to defend takedowns, keep this fight standing. And Patterson sits there with his chin just up in the air at all times. Give me Lainez probably by knockout. I think he keeps the fight standing. I think he's able to chin him very early. And, the move up in weight for Patterson is not good for someone as skinny and as long as he is.
The co-main, Zaid, is for the vacant women's bantamweight title, Pennington against Bueno Silva. Look, Pennington's been around. She's fought a lot of fighters. She's a pretty big dog here in this fight. I've seen people who like Rocky, and they think that she's going to be able to win it on the feet. I don't have a great read on this fight. Do you like one side in the co-main?
For me, it's the favorite or pass here. I think what you saw what Silva did to a Holly Holm, which is, I think, still Holly's one of the well-respected fighters in the division. And you look at Pennington, she's won like 5 of her last 6 fights, but this is a fight where it feels weird not having Amanda Nunes as champion, finally retiring, because all these other ladies, they're great fighters, but none of them are elite, best of the best type caliber fighters. I think this is a fight where, reflective in the price, you see a small favorite at Silva. Overall, it's a pass for me. I think if you lay the money with Silva, you may be making a good bet, but I don't see the Pennington side that everybody else sees.
Maybe stupid question, but is Nunes really done? Or is she just like, let someone emerge where I can make maybe one, you know how boxing is, and I'm sure UFC's the same way, right? You never really retired. Is there any chance we'll see her back in the ring, if you will, if someone, can present themselves as the other champ and that the public will buy has a chance against Nunes?
Yeah, so I think you hit it right on the head there at the end. The reason why Nunes probably just left is there's no one else for her to fight. I mean, she's fought literally every single fighter in both divisions, and she was fighting as much as she can. I mean, they kept the other division open just for her to be double champ. So when you look at Nunes, I mean, unless they bring in a Kayla Harrison or a Chris Cyborg again, or someone emerges that's a new talent in the women's division, it's hard to see her come back. Maybe she does boxing and gets a payday, but overall, I see her just, riding off into the sunset as the greatest to do it.
Zaid, I watched them a lot fight. He actually was on the same card the last time that Duplessis fought here in Vegas, and I was actually at the fight and watched it. He's fighting Neil Magny, who feels like, I think I interviewed Neil Magny 8 years ago when I first came to Vegas. Like, this guy just won't go away. He just keeps on fighting. Is that a showcase fight? Is that a chance to get his name up there? I mean, at the press conferences, he's the fan favorite. He's the Canadian. He grew up down the street from the arena in Toronto. It just feels like everyone's going to be pulling for him, and if he loses, that'll be a bummer for the crowd. What do you make of that fight?
Yeah, for sure. I compare it to my best bet in Lainez, where both these guys from Canada in showcase bouts to, really shine. And we saw it with Cody Garbrandt in Vegas most recently, being able to get that comeback fight against Brian Keller. I think Melot's a nice prospect that they have, and this is a spot where they build him up against the aging Neil Magny. Overall, I think just the price is too wide. I can't lay almost 4-1 on Melot, especially as, young prospect. You don't really have all the answers for him if he faces some adversity against Magny, which I believe he possibly can. I don't justify laying the price tag, but I do think this is a showcase spot for him.
What about using it in a parlay? What about combining, different levels? I mean, I look, I love betting the UFC. I'm not the best at it. I do parlays all the time because it's fun to grab 2 or 3 fighters together at big prices and pull them down. Could you use Mike in a parlay?
I think there's other spots maybe you could attack. I'd rather go at Jasmine Jasdavicius, who's now almost a 4-1 favorite. I think it's around similar price tag for Jasmine and Malott, but I'm more comfortable in Jasmine here. I mean, you look at Priscilla, who missed weight by literally they're bumping the fight a whole weight class up because of how unprofessional it's been. And Jasmine's a girl who could take this fight to the ground, which I have the under on in this fight, and I think she gets a finish here pretty easy. So that's kind of my parlay piece for this fight.
I was going to say, you do have the under, right? And you're getting plus odds on that, plus 134 right now on FanDuel on that fight. Why are you getting the plus odds, and then why do you like the under?
Yeah, I think Jasmine Jasdavicius is a fighter that's criminally underrated throughout her UFC career. Cachero obviously coming in, doesn't seem to be taking this fight as serious and as in shape, reflective in her missing weight by, many, many pounds, bumping it up a whole weight class. Overall, Jasdavicius has the ability to take this to the ground. I like under 2.5 rounds. If Priscilla wins this fight, her equity is going to be by finish, maybe by a knockout perhaps. So overall, you're getting both sides of equity win finish, and I like the under here at the plus money.
All right, Zaid, what are your favorite plays here? What's your best bet for the week? What are you looking at in terms of what are you betting the most down on?
Yeah, so for me, my best bet was Johan Lainez. I just think the spot is perfect for him. When you look at backing fighters and fighters you want your money on, this is the perfect example of a guy you want your money on in a must-win situation to stay in the UFC, in his hometown, training out of TriStar Gym with Faraz Zahabi and the whole crew over there. He mentioned in some interviews not even being able to have training partners in his other fights. This is a fight that he's truly all in on, and I'm all in on him because Patterson moving up weight is very, very tough to do from 155 to 170, especially when you have a suspect chin that he has. And the competition he's faced coming into the UFC is very suspect as well.
Nothing on Brad Katona, huh? You're not going to roll with Brad?
I think it's a little too wide for me. I think this is a spot where it's a dog or pass. Another fight I have my eyes on is the Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault fight. I like the over.
Big fight.
I think that's a very good fight, and it's a perfectly match-made fight. Overall, both fighters are very durable. You look at this fight, it should stay on the feet, and Curtis could take a punch. Barriault's very tough. He could take a punch as well. I see this being a striking fight over 3 rounds where we see a decision, maybe Barriault. I think he's live as a dog at plus 145 to plus 150. I like him by decision, and I like this fight going the distance as well.
I put all 3 in a parlay, 6-1 on FanDuel right now. Should I do a round robin parlay 2-team, or just go straight 3-0 and go for the gusto?
Go for the gusto all day. We've been hot, and let's ride that streak to the moon.
You have been hot.
I don't think my $10 bets are going to cash out like yours did over the last weekend, but you know what? That's okay. I'll take my $100 and go.
Absolutely.
It's been an insane run. 9-0 in my last 9 UFC bets, literally cashing with multiple underdogs.
Nice.
So let's keep the hot streak rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see what the crowd's going to do in the main event because Strickland has been sort of the working man's favorite, but Duplessis has got a big fan base in Canada. It should be a lot of fun. Zaid, best of luck in your bets, man. Appreciate the time. Thank you. We'll get back to some basketball coming up on the other side. InGame live on our Friday night here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, that you're
Mike
replacing
Shula was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings?
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
In-game live on a Friday night. Scott Wetzel and Matt Perrault with you guys here. We've got a lot of football still to come. Thanks to Zaid Hussein for coming in and talking UFC 297 with us in Toronto tomorrow night for that card. The Celtics are at the break against the Nuggets. Second half's about to get going. However, 61-55, Boston's got the lead. I bet over 61.5 team total first half. Scott, missing on the hook. Tatum open jumper at the buzzer goes awry. I don't know what is more frustrating, but I really can't stand losing games on the hook like that. It's 61.5. I need one shot. You watch the shot go up. If it's in, you win, and it clangs off the iron and you lose. Just gambling, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's tough. I had one last night with Houston and at Texas Tech. I had 18 points to give, Matt. 18 with 3 minutes left for a Houston Cougars game, which they don't get that in a half, let alone the final 3 minutes. And they had a stretch there. I still had like 8 to give in the final minute. And then there was a couple of free throws, a 3, and then a 2 in like a 15-second span. Bottom line is one last possession left, right? I'm winning by the hook. And a dopey kid from Texas Tech hits a layup with 5 seconds left rather than just, running out the final 15 seconds. And I lose by a half a point. So, yeah.
It all balances out though, because last night I got a push with I was on +2 for UC for Cal State Fullerton against UC Davis. They were up by 2, 0.9 to go. They inbound the ball. Cal State Fullerton tried to foul, and the referee just said, "Nope, we're not calling it. We're just letting it go." So I pushed. It was like so it was like it all kind of evens out, and then I got a crazy backdoor. I was catching 3.5 points in a different game, and a kid hit a layup with 2 seconds to go, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So it all balances out eventually. You bet enough, you have the ups and the downs. You can't get them all. Good breaks are followed by bad breaks. So I got them last night. I'm not getting them tonight, but we'll see what happens in the second half here between Boston and the Nuggets. We got a lot more to come. We will get to some football coming up on the other side. We have a little bit of a bye and then a high. We come back with a quick one for hour number 2. Do not move. Scott Wetzel, Matt Perrault. It is in-game live on a Friday night. Hour 2 hits you next here on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Second hour for In-Game Live on a Friday night. Scott Wetzel and Matt Perrault hanging out with you guys here on SportsGrid. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk some football with Cam Stewart here during this hour of the program. We're watching NBA basketball. The college basketball slate tonight was pretty thin. I don't know, Scott, did you find anything that you liked? I was looking to bet college basketball tonight, but there's nothing really that jumped off the page. Did you get involved in anything in college basketball tonight?
Yeah, not much. Same thing, obviously, Friday night compared to the Saturday. Everything is basically pushed off. But I did like Akron against Kent State. Akron's the best team in the MAC, 5-0. They had won all their MAC games by 10 points or more except for one. They were laying only 1.5 points at a mediocre Kent State team. A little too late now to get in. They're up 70-63 with 2 minutes left, so that's looking pretty good. Did like a little bit St. Louis and VCU over, but again, there's 3 minutes left to go in that one. Maybe the biggest one is Indiana and Wisconsin, Matt. I have like 5 or 6 teams that I play, for the most part, religiously, either all overs or all unders. And Wisconsin over the years has been one of those under teams. But this year, they're an over team. They've been scoring in the 70s and 80s, believe it or not. So I did play over tonight, 140.5 at home against Indiana, which got crushed the other night against Purdue, which I was on Indiana. Thank you very much, Hoosiers. So they're about 10 minutes in, and it's on the same pace, 139.5. So I do like Wisconsin, the over in the game, and now 139.5. So basically what it was to start the game.
All right, let's talk some hockey. And I know that you have some bets here for the future markets in the NHL. The only future I've bet so far is that I took Vancouver at 27-1 about a week and a half ago to win the Stanley Cup. I'm on the Bruins over 98.5 points, but those are really the only 2 future bets I've gotten involved with too much here for the NHL. What are you looking at? And when it comes to the futures markets, when do you look to get involved, and why do you get involved with the teams you have?
Yeah, right around now, man. And all these teams now playing half the season, a little bit over half the season, between 40, 45 games for the most part. And, I generally tell people, no matter what the sport, right, give it a month realistically. Let the bad teams be bad. Let the good teams be good. And the Cinderella teams, generally by the halfway mark, if they're this good this long, then all right, I'm ready to buy in. Even though Vegas generally doesn't. You don't want to wait too long because Vegas will eventually buy into these teams. So I think you're getting halfway decent value. Hate that phrase. But, I'm going to try and accumulate about 5, 6, 7, even 8 teams, all at around 30-70-1 or even higher. Hope that they turn things around or hope that they continue their success. And then at the end of the year, I'm sitting on 8 teams, all at 50+1 or so, and they all make the playoffs. And now you can start really hedging. So one of the teams is Philadelphia. Listen, I've seen this team play a number of times. They got great goaltending. And that's what you look for, right, in a Stanley Cup run. Can Carter Hart do it? I think he can. They got a superstar in Konecny. They got the head coach who's a nut, but the team is responding in Tortorella. I guess 70-1 you're getting. This team is on fire right now. What is it, second place, I think it is. You know what? 43 games is enough for me. You want to give me 70-1 in the Eastern Conference, which I think is wide open? I'll take it. Another one is listen, I know they're struggling, but it's Minnesota. I look for teams, Matt, that maybe playing their worst hockey, and they are. Clearly they're playing their worst hockey, but they're a good team. And they got to turn things around. They have to turn things around, right? I can grab them at over 100 to 1
the Flyers, though. Their goaltending is the exact opposite of what you're talking about. Either Marc-Andre Fleury or Gustafsson are both, they're sieves at the moment.
They are. Well, we got a trade deadline coming up here in about a month or so, a little less than a month. Yes. I think February 8th, I think it is. So, again, they're a good team that's playing lousy. So let me buy in now and hoping that, we got 3 months before the end of the season, they'll turn things around. I get them 150-1 right now on FanDuel. That's where do I sign on that? I'll take a couple of Flyers on that one. The other ones that we have are the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I gave it to the guys. We had a graphic. They were 11-1 literally around 2 o'clock this afternoon on FanDuel. They're not
Right.
11-1 anymore. They have dropped down to 9.5-1. But that's
Interesting.
still a good number. Right now, is it 20, 30, 40-1 like we talked about? No, but I got a team that's red hot, that should be good. One of these years, they're finally going to break through. They continue to play like this, they're not going to be 9.5-1 to start the postseason. They're one of the popular teams. They'll be down to 5-6-1 maybe.
They have
and then
to.
the other one
They
real
have to
quickly
trade.
is Tampa Bay
Okay.
at 32-1.
Oh, well, I mean, that's obviously the stars, the aging stars of Tampa. Can they make one more hurrah and one more run together? And can Vasilevsky keep himself healthy? And I mean, yeah, so that's not a bad bet at all. The Oilers bet's really interesting because Skinner is they're an over machine. They've been winning like crazy. And so people are buying in. I look, the Oilers, there's two teams going into this year I thought that have big seasons. One was Edmonton, one was Carolina. I don't know what's going on with Carolina. I mean, they're just an absolute dumpster fire at the moment. They're an over team, which is so strange. I mean, last year, I don't know what happened because your T-Wolves bet's interesting because Minnesota was an under team for 3/4 of the year last year. And then as they realized they had to make the playoffs, they flipped their style and went wide open and became an over team and scored a ton and gave up a ton of goals. At one point last year, Gustafsson was incredible. He was just an absolute dog under every time. And now he can't stop anything. He just gives up goals like crazy. And they've kept playing that way here into 2024, where they're giving a bunch of goals, they're scoring a bunch of goals, but they're giving up a bunch of goals. So that's if they could figure out to go back to the last year's style, I think you got something with the T-Wolves, with the Wild. But Edmonton's that team that everybody wants, including myself. Like, we want McDavid in the playoffs. We want Draisaitl in the playoffs. We want that top line to go out there and score a ton. We want them to be great. Trade for a goaltender, please. Like, just go get a goaltender who can help this team do something in the postseason because they've got the pieces to win the whole thing, except the guy between the pipes. They just can't figure that out.
Are you and I'm not. I've never been. Forget about now, not even in his Pittsburgh days. I always thought he was overrated, but there's some buzz. Marc-Andre Fleury. Are you a Fleury guy? And does he have anything left that would be that guy for Edmonton to pick up?
I don't have anything for him now. I am a Fleury guy in his career. I mean, here in Vegas, he took him to the Cup Finals his first year. So obviously, we have a ton of admiration and respect for what Marc-Andre Fleury was. Dave Sherapan, obviously the Pittsburgh guy of BVB, is in love with the Cup wins, what Marc-Andre Fleury did. So, like, they love him in Pittsburgh. So clearly, he's an apple of his eye type of situation. I like the guy just because he was the face of the franchise, did everything right, said everything right, and then went out and performed his tail off. And then basically they let him walk, essentially traded him away and didn't get really anything for him when they traded him. So that was tough. But the team obviously won the Cup in the wake of it. So that was the right decision. I love the guy, but I would not want him with Edmonton. No, both goaltenders for the Wild are problematic. They both have
I got a guy for
stopping
you.
the puck. Ooh.
I got a guy for you when we come back that you would probably know better than anyone if this team would move this guy.
Interesting. We'll get to that on the other side. More hockey. We'll look at the NBA slate as well. Friday night, in-game live here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you're
Mike Shula
replacing
was a
him.
disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
In-game live on a Friday night. Scott Wetzel and Matt Perrault with you guys here on SportsGrid. Thanks for hanging out. We're watching NBA games. Philadelphia's all over Orlando. Here was 5 to play in the fourth quarter. It's 107-88. Sixers continue to play well. At the break, the Atlanta Hawks without Trey is here up 1, 57-56. I'm on Miami. I laid the 6 with Miami in that game, so that's not good. We need a second half spurt out of the Heat at home. Phoenix 69-52, Scott. That is an impressive first half performance out of the Phoenix Suns. How are you? What's your outlook on Phoenix? Because it sure feels like there's a lot. We talked about it a bit last night here with Joe Neary and with Taylor, talking a bit about the aging Western Conference teams, and the Suns obviously being one of them. The Warriors in jeopardy of missing the postseason. The Lakers. Where are you on Phoenix?
You know, I was high on them to begin with. I bought into the hype of the big three there, but I just don't think, Matt, it's ever going to happen. Bradley Beal, probably the youngest. Well, Booker would be the youngest of the three, but he just can never stay healthy. The guy just can never stay healthy. So I don't think that's going to change all of a sudden. We're seeing a little wear and tear in KD. I'd love to see them do well, but I just ultimately, championship-wise, I don't think it's going to happen. They'll get in, obviously. They'll probably win a round, but then maybe get knocked out in the second round.
Yeah.
You wonder when do you buy in fully with Minnesota, in OKC?
Right.
Excuse me. That is the question, in the Western Conference, right? Are we buying into them come playoff time, or are they just a regular season, nice story?
I agree. And that's going to be a huge question mark when you have, so much is dependent upon Edwards with Minnesota. They play defense and they have the Twin Towers. And then OKC with Chet and the way he has played so far this season and how dominant at times he has been, although he's hit a little bit of a wall here over the last couple of games. He's kind of slowed up on his scoring as to what he was doing earlier in the season. But you just have this youth movement going on right now, other than the Clippers, which, they're an aging team, but it's weird. They don't feel as old as the Lakers or the Warriors or the Suns. I know they are, but you have so many weapons with Kawhi, who's still really much in the prime of his career. Harden has bought into that team. Russell Westbrook coming off the bench now is taking a smaller role for that team. Paul George looks healthy and really looks as good as he's been in years. I love this Clippers team. I think that they're deep. They're really difficult to beat. What they look like against a team like Denver, we'll kind of figure out once we get to the postseason. But I really feel like this is a changing of the guard. Doesn't it feel like there's like a torch being passed here from these aging teams to the younger teams?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it started last year with Denver winning it, right? I mean, people expect the Lakers and maybe Golden State, all of a sudden be able to turn it on, and Phoenix. I don't think it will. I don't think the NBA is going to be too thrilled with an Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Western Conference semifinals with Denver, I assume, with someone. But I think I am buying into these teams, maybe even New Orleans. The question ultimately is, get in a best of 7. Can anyone stop the Joker? Does anybody have a player on the team? Can Minnesota's Twin Towers, if you will? And I tell you the thing I love about that, Matt, with these teams is, for the most part, they're winning with defense. You have the Indiana Pacers and the Atlanta Hawks of the world, but when you look at Minnesota, they're one of the rare under teams. And same thing with OKC, to a lesser extent with OKC, but that to me tells me, okay, give me that defensive style team, because I think they're better suited to be successful in the postseason. So I've been on Minnesota for like 3 years running. I've had it up to my ears in Minnesota, but so I'm going to be reluctant on buying in, but I am slowly buying in one more time with the teacups, as I like to call them.
Yeah, I bought in last year on their team total for wins, and I got burned there. So, yeah, I'm with you. I believe the hype, and I've loved the youth movement and the talent, and then it just sort of, once we get past the All-Star break, things just go south for that team for some reason. It did last year brutally. So I hope it's not the same, because I love what the Western Conference playoffs could look like. Look, I still think Steph Curry will find his way in. We know Klay Thompson's taking a very large step back, and Draymond Green has done some really, a lot of damage to that locker room with the way he has done things on the court this season. But I still think they'll find a way in. And whenever you put Steph Curry in a playoff format, you have to like their chances of at least getting to the final 8 and then maybe winning a round in the Western Conference playoffs. But those are going to be a war. Are you buying in on the Knicks yet? Did you believe the Knicks might have something to say here in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, not yet. It's going to take a little while. Listen, they had a nice run, the trade. I really didn't like the trade, to tell you the truth. I thought they gave up way too much, but it's been so far so good. They also, win defensively. They're a nice little under run here. But on that level with the Eastern Conference, with Miami, and I still will put Miami in as one of the biggies. We've seen them perform too well in the postseason, right? Are they on that Miami, Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia level? Yeah, not yet. Better than Cleveland. They showed that last year. Better than probably Atlanta. But they're on the best of the rest at the top, but not in the top 4 for me.
Yeah, I know Knicks fans want to buy it, but I really feel like it's a top-heavy Eastern Conference. And look, I think Indiana could be a problem. I mean, we'll see what Pascal Siakam looks like once he gets kind of into the rotation there in Indiana. But, them with Halliburton, they just run. Without him, they're all of a sudden a massive under team. I think it's 6 out of the last 7 games that they've been on the under for the Pacers. So they were the number 1 or number 2 over team in the NBA. And now all of a sudden they're just playing unders because they're playing defense all of a sudden because they have to, because they can't score the way that they were scoring earlier in the year with the injury to Halliburton. So having Siakam come in, what does the team look like once he gets incorporated? They're going to be a problem. Like it'll be fun to watch. I'm not really a believer in many of the other teams, though. Miami, I'm not really a believer in at the moment of being a huge problem for the top teams. And I really feel like it's Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Boston. And then it's kind of like there's a gap there between everybody else. And I still think the Celtics are the best team in the East, and there's a little bit of a gap between them and Philadelphia and in Milwaukee. So this is the doldrums, if you will. Like we're into the NFL playoffs, and we're heading towards the All-Star break for the NBA. And you start to see teams kind of go through lulls, and then they'll ramp it back up as we get to the spring and getting closer to the summer. So I'm with you on the Knicks. I think it might be a little bit of, overexcitement
Randall's
or hype.
Randall's got to play better.
Yeah.
Right? All right, man. Randall's got to show he can perform in the postseason. I mean, this guy's been awful in the postseason. So, to me, that's the thing. Unless he shows
they're
it,
fun,
then
though.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, they're
What
fun.
do you think about the
like
Siakam trade? What'd you think of that?
I mean, Toronto has gone out and won, both games, right? Since they trade away everybody.
Yeah.
So
no, they lost last night. They did lose last night.
But they were winning most of that game last night against Chicago, and then I didn't see the final. But I don't know what Toronto's really doing. I mean, I know they're going to be more wide open now with Scotty Barnes, and they're going to so I think it's good for Indiana. I mean, he's a great player. How does he fit in with Indiana? I got to see before I'm really in love with it, but it's more of like scratching my head with what Toronto's doing, going like, okay, we're just going to raise a white flag right now, like mid-season, and like just see what you got with Scotty Barnes, and can he be the guy? So I don't know. I was surprised by it. I'll say that. I was surprised that both teams did it. Indiana took him and Toronto gave up on him.
Yeah. The issue I have, Matt, is the guy's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And it's kind of like the argument I have with radio program directors over the years when they kept on saying, Scott, we can go to break. You got to promote. You got to promote what you're going to talk about after the break. I said, well, what happens if the listener doesn't like what I'm promoting? He's going to turn the dial. I never get like a good response for that, right? So same thing with Indiana. Yeah, you're bringing the guy in. You're going to show him Indiana and hopefully use that to convince him to re-sign. But what if he comes to Indiana now and doesn't like Indiana and says, you know what? I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to hear about the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to turn the dial. I don't want to play for the Pacers anymore. Maybe before I didn't know I would have signed, but now I know I don't like it. So you gave up 3 number ones for a guy who's going to be an unrestricted free agent that you have to max out, right? You have to give him the absolute max. Wow.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. Well, if he leaves, yeah, that's bad news. InGame Live Friday night. Don't move.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you're replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Scott Wetzel, Matt Perrault, InGame Live on a Friday night here on SportsGrid. Scott, you made a comment to me that got people's attention, and I want to kind of circle back to it, but I also want to ask you a different question. First, you think domes should be everywhere? People were like, that's Scott guy. What's going on, man? Do you want domes? Can't have domes everywhere. What are we doing? Buffalo's got to play outside. It's part of the Bills thing. Where are you on the horns down sign? And was Texas right to be ticked off when Central Florida beat them on their own court and started doing the horns down thing in Austin that really ticked off a lot of Longhorn fans? Is that fair or foul to do that sign?
Oh, no, that's absolutely fair, right? I mean, I don't know how anyone could say that's foul. I mean, listen, it's a horns. Who says the horn should be up anyway? What is horns up versus horns down? What's the difference? It's a horn. I've seen bulls go down, right? I mean, it's for that head coach to be that upset. He's not upset his team blew a double-digit, oh, by the way, lead in the second half at home. That's not what has him ticked off. It's that the fact that the other kids were celebrating in a way in which they didn't like. I mean, come on. What happened if they went on center court, Matt, and stomped up and down on the Texas logo? Would that be okay? I guess we can't do that either, right? I mean, I've always said these handshake lines should be disallowed because you're asking for trouble. One day, and it's happened, you're going to get a massive brawl because you want to have good sportsmanship. I get it. But you know what? It just leads to trouble. You lose, walk that way. You win, you walk that way, and we'll say hi at the end. But don't do me the handshake lines. But now we got to worry about head coaches. Whether it's Juwan Howard punching other teams or coaches or now it's players. I mean, coach. Fingers down is going to get you that upset? Really? That was pretty.
It's interesting. Right? Is it because as Texas goes into the SEC, like the Big 12 was pretty much run by Texas. Whatever Texas said went. And when the realignment happened back in 2011, it was, Texas, Oklahoma was supposed to go to the Pac-12, and that was going to kill the Big 12. It didn't happen, but they had to give all these concessions to Texas, and a lot of it was admin type of stuff. But part of it also was that horns down sign was going to get you flagged. That if you were doing that, if you did that, if a football player of Oklahoma during the Red River did that, a flag was going to come out from an unsportsmanlike conduct. The SEC is not going to do that for Texas. They're not going to care if you're upset or you're angry because somebody does a little bit of a down horn sign. So they better get tougher skin here pretty quick, because the new conference is not going to get run by them because they're the new guys in town. And sure, you're from Texas and you're big money Austin, and I get all the stuff that the burnt orange represents for Texas. But guys, you better get, tougher really, really quickly here when you go into the SEC, because that was pretty embarrassing to watch the Texas, all the coaches, players, everybody get all up in arms because you lost a game at home, which was tough enough, but you were so incensed that somebody actually did a hand signal that is your pride and joy and your perfect, Texas UT pride that someone's doing that. So we're in a weird place in sports right now, Scott. I mean, there's a lot of things that are strange. Getting angry over something like that, I think, is one of the, not the number one, but it's up there in terms of are we really serious with this? We're getting this mad over something like that?
Yeah. I'm sure he'll apologize, although he should have done it today. Maybe he did. I don't know. But ultimately, he's probably going to say, yeah, I was upset we lost the game and I took it out on the kids. I'd like to think he would take the high road. Then we had Nate Oates. I don't know if you saw that, the Alabama head coach, push a player last night. Now, man, you can't do that. This guy's a little bit of a hothead. I like him. He was an anti-Dookie Pukey guy a couple of years ago, ripping Duke, so he's okay in my book, but you can't shove a player, even if it's kind of the break up a little scrum. And he did apologize for that. He did the right thing. So
he apologized for doing it, but that's not a moment you ever want to be caught as a head coach in college athletics. You never put your hands on a player, your own player or somebody else's player. That's not really what you want to be doing. Baylor's at Texas tomorrow, by the way, early morning, noon ESPN game in the Big 12, which is a big one for Baylor because things haven't been going great for the Bears, although they still have a top 10 ranking up against them. And UCF goes to Houston tomorrow. So after their win over Texas, they got to go play up against Houston. And we know that they had a bad week last week, stubbing their toe. What do you make of the ranked teams losing? Is that just something here in late January where you get into conference play and teams just know each other really well? Or is there something about being ranked right now where you're just the hunted and you're not playing well when you have that number next to your name?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both, right? It's good for a bettor unless you're actually betting on that team. But then next time out gives you you get a little insight into that club. There's a reason for them to take the game the next time more seriously. The riot act was read on them. So it does give you kind of a betting angle, but it's just parity, man. It's just parity.
Yeah.
We can't keep a number one for more than literally, a couple of days. The next week, there's always another number one out there, whether it's Purdue or whoever the case may be, Houston. So I just think it's, like I said, it's parity in college basketball when everything is said. It's hard to win, right? This is not the NBA. You go to some of these arenas, and you have 15 to 16, 17,000 crazy fans, and half of them are students, and probably half of those are liquored up, right? To use a Peyton Manning phrase. And it's a tough environment. You're talking about not, 23, 24, 25-year-old people in NBA. You're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And you got 16, 17,000 people yelling and screaming. No matter how good you are, better maybe athletic than them, that's tough sometimes. So, and that's the beauty of college basketball. That's why we love it.
Yeah. So let's use that crowd reaction to get into the late game Sunday night. We have not talked Bills Chiefs yet. Cam Stewart's coming on here in the next segment to give us his thoughts. Let's get ours here on the record. 2.5, if it goes to 3, it gets batted right back down. My gut tells me is that this number probably does close at 3. The Bills' money comes late, and the game will be 3. But the professionals definitely like Chiefs +3 here on the road at Buffalo. Does Patrick Mahomes, does he do it again? Does the Lucy with the football thing happen again for Bills fans where they finally have a home game? They finally get Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes in their park, in their place. They're 0-3 against him in the playoffs in Arrowhead, but this game's in Buffalo. Do the Bills get it done?
I think they do. I think this is the best bet on the board, to tell you the truth. Woo. Even though they beat them this year in Kansas City, which I don't like that angle. I wish they hadn't faced each other, but they did. But I think they do. I've been anti-Kansas City. It's more really of an anti-Kansas City thing than it is a pro-Buffalo thing, Matt, for me. But, certainly Buffalo plays a part in this. I just think Kansas City's a mediocre team this year. They're dropping balls left and right. You realize Travis Kelce has not had, going to all my notes, every once in a while I come across something that's like, no, can't be, right? Travis Kelce has not had a touchdown reception in 7 games. 7.
Wow.
He's not the same player. He's only had 5 all year. 3 of the 5 came in the first 4 games of the season. So since week 5, he's only had 2 touchdown receptions. They've been able to win. Give them all the credit in the world, but it's been ugly. It's been a struggle. And even last week against Miami, even though the final score said they won easily, and they did, but they should have won that game 50-7. I mean, they had so many opportunities, and their offense just couldn't get it into the end zone. I love Buffalo tomorrow, and I'm not a Sunday rather. I'm not a Josh Allen guy. I think he's going to stub his toe next round because he's an interception turnover machine waiting to happen. But I do think they put it together. I'd even lay double digits. Kansas City was my play last week to lay 15 to 20 points. We said it during the show, in-game live Saturday night, me and Joe. I think Buffalo is that team this week. I think they win this one kind of in that similar, 27-10, 27-13 vein. I think they win by double digits.
Interesting. I don't hate it. I like Buffalo too. It's wild because the radio personality in me, when I hear you say he hasn't caught a touchdown since week 5, and the question you would ask is, so what happened in week 6 or 7 going on? Who started coming to games in week 6 and 7 that kind of may have changed everything for Travis Kelce? I don't know, maybe. And then I'm like, and then the Swifties will come after you. Like, it's not her fault. She didn't, it's Travis's fault. Okay. I'm not saying it was her fault. I'm not saying that. It is an interesting correlation with she started to show up and his game started to go down the tubes and not playing very well. So I don't know why, but maybe thing to that as to how Kelce has performed, but I'm with you on this. Everyone's pointing, and I was doing a podcast yesterday for a station in Kansas City, and they said that this is the game that the Chiefs wake up and remember who they are. And I kept on, when they were saying it, I was like, so you're telling me that they have to go on the road in the divisional round, and all of a sudden, like Pacheco and Rice and Kelce and Mahomes, they play like what? The 2017-18 Chiefs? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I have a hard time seeing that they're going to go on the road for the first time in the Mahomes era and throw a switch, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the dynasty's back on. Look at this team. They're going to run through the Bills, knowing even with the Bills' injuries that they couldn't put away the Dolphins at home in the frigid cold when Miami wanted to be anywhere else but Arrowhead Stadium. And they kicked field goal after field goal after field goal in that game. And if they didn't have that pass interference or that roughing the passer call, that maybe it would get hairy at the end of that game there, and it wouldn't have been 26-7. It could have been much closer than that. So in Buffalo with the crowd in a silent count for Mahomes and this offense, I'm with you. I think Buffalo gets it done. I don't know if they get it done by double digits, but this is the time for the Bills. I mean, I know people who have really big tickets on Buffalo to win the AFC and then to win the Super Bowl. And this is the game they're worried about. Like, this is, they got to get, I disagree. I think Baltimore is going to beat Buffalo next week, but they think that they'll go to Buffalo and beat the Ravens because it's getting that huge monkey off their back. They're going to finally beat Mahomes and finally get them at their place and everything changes. But I'm with you. I think Buffalo wins this game, and I think it's Bills and the Ravens next week for a trip to Vegas on the line. Let's get to Cam Stewart, his thoughts, picks, and plays next in Game Live on a Friday night.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted them out. They still wanted them gone.
Mike Shula, you're
Mike Shula
replacing
was
him?
a disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
In-game live Friday night. Matt and Scott with you here on SportsGrid. Time to welcome in our friend Cam Stewart. I don't know if we're going dumpster diving tonight. Cam, we got a lot of good games. Football this weekend. How are you on this Friday night? Good to see you.
Hanging in there. A lot of, you guys know the ups and downs, the roller coaster of gambling. Had Carolina -1.5. Needed one more goal. 4-2 final there. I bet the Panthers live plus 525 when they were down 3. They're down 1. Can we get a miracle? That would be absolutely great. So we can roll that into the football. Golf, it's gone pretty good. We got a lot of guys on the leaderboard, but trust me, you don't worry about a golf tournament until Sunday afternoon. Like anything can happen there. But yeah, no, it was a great week last week, Matt. Actually, we went 6-1 in the dumpster. The only loss was Detroit -3 out of all the picks last week. We had Green Bay in the over. We had basically we nailed it. We had a really good week on the show. So hopefully we can replicate that. But very, very difficult. I'm looking at these lines going, it's just so tempting to take. Like I looked at every underdog this week and go, I can make a case for them. But you guys know what happens in the divisional round. Usually the cream rises to the top. So we'll see. There's one dog I like, but out of the chalky game, but I'm going with one favorite. And I think we're on the same side, Matt. I heard you while you were talking to Wetzel in the last segment. I think we're flying with the birds this week.
We are. Before we get to the games, who do you want for the Seahawks to take as head coach? Would you take Vrabel?
Oh, damn right I would. Mike Vrabel is the perfect coach for Seattle because he's the opposite of Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was a cheerleader. He had everything but the pom-poms. Great guy. You know what? And players liked him. You'll say, people will say Pete Carroll's a good football man. But me and Gabe talked about it on the show. Like they had guys like Richard Sherman saying, we heard the same speech like 500 times, just popped into earphones. Like the same stuff over and over and over again. Matt, you know the drill. Like kind of like that hockey coach that comes in there like angry, like a guy like Tortorella. That act will last for a while, and then eventually, it's not going to work anymore. So, hey, we got 1 Super Bowl. Should have been 2 against your New England Patriots. What are you going to do with actually, it could have even been 3. That Pittsburgh game was a screw job. Anyway, I'll take 1. So you know what? I would love Mike Vrabel as a coach because he's a motivator of men. And the thing is, the guys will respect him because he played the game at a very high level. And I think that's exactly what Seattle needs. And Vrabel's a defensive guy. What's Seattle's problem? The defense. Their secondary gets absolutely torched. Their secondary and linebackers are awful. So I think Vrabel's a good guy. Actually, I would love Mike Vrabel to be our coach. Probably one of my first choices.
No buzz about Seattle, right? We hear about the Chargers. We hear about Washington hiring the GM. We hear about the Falcons. How come nothing with Seattle, Cam?
I don't know what it is. They got like 4 or 5 clients on the list. No, they're really high on too. Houston's offensive coordinator. Been reading a lot of stuff from like the Seattle newspapers and stuff like that. Like apparently like Vrabel could be in the mix, but they really like this guy. Was it Slotek, right? That's his name, right?
Slotek,
the guy
from,
he's
young.
Yeah, that guy's
36,
wicked.
36 years old, young.
Very smart, and he did a great job with Stroud and this team this year. But is he ready to be a head coach? I don't know, but that's the rumor that they're buzzing around is Seattle really likes this guy a lot. So you're right, Wetzel. We hear like Harbaugh's interviewing with the Chargers, and we hear about this and Belichick in Atlanta. But yeah, Seattle's keeping it really mum. I got to be honest with you. At first I was thinking Dan Quinn, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. He was there before. He's really good, but just watching Dallas get beat down by Green Bay. Like, you know what it is, Matt? It's after a while, we just, we have the same flavor all the time. I just want something new. I'm sick of vanilla. Like, you know what I mean? I just want to mix it up. Somebody different. The opposite of Carroll. Like Vrabel, he's fine to me. The offensive coordinator, young guy, we can start fresh. I just don't want a guy that's already been in the organization coming back. I know there's a comfort level there, but I think it's time for Seattle to just kind of strip it down. Like, where are they? There's nothing worse in sports when you're a middling team. You're an 8-8 team, a 7-9 team, a 9-7. They're not bad. They're not good. They're there. I would actually rather them be bad and build. That's how they got good. They drafted. I'll give Pete Carroll credit. He drafted him and Schneider and the Seattle Brass. Look at the steals they got in the draft. They've been very good when they drafted Russell Wilson late. And it actually started with Dennis Erickson. They had their best draft when they picked up Sean Springs and Walter Jones in the first round of the draft. And after that, the Seahawks just kind of went from like the laughing stock of the lead and consistently got better. By the way, Dennis Erickson got thrown under the bus. That guy was actually a pretty good coach for us. Just my take. I like the guy. Yeah.
All right, we got 4 games, 2 tomorrow, 2 on Sunday. Let's start with the early game, AFC South Special, Saturday afternoon, we've got the Ravens laying 9.5. Totals around 43.5 here. There will be no weather concerns. The snow should be gone in Baltimore. You mentioned it. Yes, I am on the Ravens. I am going to lay this big number. I think Cream does ride to the top here, and I don't think we're going to have a repeat of the 14-2 MVP one-and-done Ravens. I like Baltimore big. Where are you?
Exactly the same lane you're going in, Matt. Exactly the same. At first, I did a video on Monday, and I bet Houston. I woke up Tuesday, and I go, what am I thinking about? Like, no, let's just look at this line, and look what Houston did on the road against the Jets. I know Stroud got murdered. Like, all those road games against good defenses, it wasn't as good as you think. Cleveland was basically, they were fraudulent. They were a great defense at home, but they also got torched sometimes on the road. So, hey, they had a good game plan. Houston was at home. Now you got to go into a hostile environment with Baltimore off rest. And one thing about the Ravens we know, guys, Wetzel, you know it, Matt, you know it. These guys have been a playoff disappointment. Sometimes, Matt, you're a boxer. You got to hit the canvas a few times before you get to the top. And I can tell you one thing. These guys have been beat down, and that's in their head. We cannot finish like this. We're not going to lose to like Tennessee like they did in the past. They are going to put their foot on this team's throat and win this game, I think, by 17 to 20 points. My score is like 34-13. Like, I think Baltimore absolutely murders them, and I'm leaning under.
Yeah.
Like right
I
around
agree.
the number.
And I love that
43.5. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I kind of like the over right now just because I think it's going to be a blowout, but it could be like 33-7, 33-10 and sneak under. But I love the fact that you're right, Ken. They've been told all week they can't win. If this team comes out, I really would be surprised if this team didn't come out flying like you said. How about San Fran laying 9.5? Same thing against Green Bay, over under 50.5 on that one. Going with the favorite again?
Nope. This is where I pivot and take the dog. I like Green Bay. I'm not getting in front of what's happening right now. Shanahan and LaFleur, they know each other. I know San Francisco's great. They're the best team in the league, but they're also off a little bit of rest. I actually think the rest helps the Ravens more than them. I just think Green Bay, when you're a hot team, you want to keep on playing. Right, guys? Like when you played sports before, when we're winning in hockey, I'm like, let's do it again. Let's play like 6 games in a row. Let's go. Then we get that break. Oh, here we go. Girlfriend calls. Oh, yeah, the bills came in. Oh, you got to get me this. Bad problem. It's like Wetzel's problem when he gets home, with the kids with their hand
Welcome
out.
to my world.
With the money. Yeah, no, trust me, Wetzel. Every time I played hockey on the road or went to tournaments, we did great because we didn't have to worry about all the people at home, whatever. You just deal with it. It's almost like a wrestler. You like being heel. And right now, Green Bay, guys, they're playing with house money. I think they're loose. Love's getting better. The receivers are growing every week. The defense, a little bit concerned about San Francisco. They can dice you. But here's the deal. If they get any type of quarterback pressure on Purdy, they can win this game outright, in my opinion. We've seen Purdy struggle before against Baltimore. When his tackle was out, they lost to Cleveland. All those things. I just think 9.5 is too many points. I think it's San Francisco wins like 27-23 is the exact score I'm going to bet in that game. I think it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it's right on the number. I like the over 2. I'm with you on the Packers plus 9.5. I'm right. I totally agree. I think the Packers to win the game. I think there's a shot that Brock Purdy will have a really rough game and he could derail the entire thing for the Niners. I mean, I love the kid. Iowa State. I spent time in Ames. They love him. I love the story, but he was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. And maybe we're starting to see some cracks here as to why he was picked where he was picked.
You lived in Ames?
Yeah, well, I lived in Des Moines, so I covered.
You guys are talking about Yellowknife. That's like the Yellowknife for the Midwest. No, but I will say this. First of all, Iowa State Cyclones out there, I love you guys. Because every time I was jammed up and I needed a bet, I always took Iowa State. Like they've helped me out of so many jams. Like remember back in the day when they had that football program, they're just building it, getting 1 million points all the time, winning bowl games outright. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Cyclones. I'm a Cyclone,
Dan McCartney.
not a Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I've always been an Iowa State guy. Yeah. Wow, I didn't even know you went there. Wild. That's crazy.
No, he coached there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Purdy went to Iowa State. Yeah, he was a coach of the Cyclones under Matt Campbell. So we go to Sunday and we go into I'll be very curious to see everything's going to roll to the night game, and it feels like the Lions and the Bucs game is being overlooked because I like Tampa. I like 6.5. I'll love 7 if I can get it. But I like Baker Mayfield. I think the Ghosts, I made this point on BVB earlier today that it feels like the Yankees and the Red Sox. It feels like what Jeter said, like you wait long enough in 2003 and the Ghosts are going to show up. I feel like the Lions Ghosts are going to show up. They were fortunate to get out of last week with a win over the Rams, and Rams may have been the better football team. I think Tampa's really hot. I know they're on the road and not at home, but it's a dome. Give me the 6.5. Where are you on Bucks Lions?
I'm with you again. Like we have the exact same picks. The thing is, I think Detroit is going to find a way to win the game, just like the Rams game. I think they're going to win by like 1-4. I think 6.5 is way too many. That's the thing, guys. I think we can attack this week very differently. Like, I think you can do like a teaser maybe with San Francisco to win the game and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of it. I'm going to be like playing middles, because I think these dogs can cover these big numbers, but I still think the favorites are going to win. As for this game, Matt, I like the over here. Detroit, they got the secondary, Cam Sutton. He's going to get absolutely torched. And vice versa, Goff and the Lions are going to torch them. I see like a 38-34 game. Like, I see an absolute fireworks at Ford Field. So I lean dog, I lean over. Detroit to win.
Interesting. 20-6 in the regular season. All right, then the finale. They saved the best for last, perhaps. Buffalo laid 2.5 at home against Kansas City.
You know what this is, Wetzel? Paul Bovey was on our show, and he said, you know what, Cam? Sentiment doesn't win you money. I'm like, you're right. I'm a Leaf fan. It's cost me a lot of money. And have they paid for my mortgage or anything to do in my life? No. They just continually screw me with parking costs and bad performances and heavy fees. But next to the Seahawks, the Bills are my team. I'm in the area. I've always loved this team. I don't even hate the Sabres. I don't like other teams. Sorry, Matt. Boston is the team I have a problem with for what you guys have done to us in the playoffs.
It's all good.
You broke my heart. You broke my heart so many times. It can't be repaired. I love Buffalo in this spot. Just get a couple defenders back. Mahomes, you got to go on the road for the first time now. And the one thing I like about it, I will take the money line. I prefer, you know what it is, Matt? I know it's 2.5, whatever. They win by 1-3. I just want them to win the game. This is a bet for me that win the game. And I think they can win the game. And I love one thing about Josh Allen. If they're down in that game, I actually trust them. In the final drive, if they need a touchdown, I think he'll pull a John Elway versus Green Bay with the helicopter. He's going to stiff arm guys, face plant guys, and like a damn horse running in the Kentucky Derby, run over everybody. I can't get in front of this Bills team. It's part heart, but I'm telling you, I think they got the weapons to do it. Let's go. Bills money line parlay too. Oh yeah, thanks. Thank you, Frank Font. 10-point teaser. Baltimore pick, San Francisco pick, Buffalo plus 7.5. Nice and easy. Because I think if the Chiefs win, it'll be close, and I don't want to take the Chiefs at 12.5. I'd rather have Buffalo. That parlay, Ravens, Niners, and Lions is plus 103. So that's what I'm doing with those games. And Matt, you know all my sides. So basically, if I have a good week this week, you're going to have a good week this week. We'll be talking next week. We're going to be crying on each other's shoulder or celebrating with a keg.
We're all our picks are almost identical, Cam. So yes, good luck to you. Hopefully you'll come up with some good picks and we'll do well. Thanks for being here. We'll go back to wrap the hour next, Cam. Top of the hour, you get him here on SportsGrid.
You got it.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula,
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
InGame Live, PrimeTime, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Denver gives Boston their first loss at home of the season, 102-100. Jason Tatum shot at the buzzer, no call, a lot of contact. Referees let it play out. Really helter-skelter last 30 seconds of that basketball game. Boston had a lane violation that could have been called. It was a jump ball. The Boston Celtics got the jump, and then they had 30 seconds. And they couldn't do much with it. It was a 102-100 win for the Nuggets. They were 7.5-point dogs. Good call by you, Scott, on that one. I took the 5. I laid the 5.5. You took the 7.5. Wasn't needed. Outright win for the Nuggets there tonight. There in Boston. So that was a rough game for me. I missed 2 bets on that game. So unfortunately, I missed on the hook in the first half and on the full game as well on that one. What's your favorite play for the weekend, Scott? Is it the Bills?
It is Buffalo. I got 3 things for you. Love Buffalo, laying to 2.5. I just think, like I said, I would even use adjusted line, work that to your advantage, lay 10.5, 11.5. I could see 27-13, 27-10. Love the under. How about this one, Matt? Kansas City, fourth quarter unders this year?
Yeah.
17-1. Second half unders for Kansas City, 16-2. Just amazing. My favorite goofy little prop bet, every game to have a touchdown scored by a quarterback. We can get one with Mahomes and Allen. We can get one with Lamar Jackson.
Easy.
We're going to need some help with the other 2, but 55-1. 55-1.
Jared Goff on a QB sneak at the goal line is not that crazy. So that's not that crazy.
Mayfield's?
That's the one that you would need.
Yeah.
Maybe, but Baker's shoulder, they may not want him to do it because of his shoulder. They may want to keep him away from running the football. But Goff could absolutely get it there for that. Do you bet Do you bet the fourth quarter and the second half pre or in game?
Pre. Got to bet it pre.
Pre. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because you can bet it both. You can bet it pre or you can bet it in game even for the fourth quarter or the second half numbers. But yeah, the Chiefs have been very, very good. Scott, good work with you. Best of luck on the weekend plays. I know you guys are going to be busy here on SportsGrid talking about the games and breaking them all down coming up. I'm with you. I like the Bills. Let's see what the Ravens do tomorrow. It's my favorite play with the Ravens to blow out the Houston Texans coming up tomorrow. For Scott Wetzel and Matt Perrault, Sports Rage up next here on SportsGrid.